This video today is going to be looking at Charles Darwin and his theory of natural selection. What were some of the observations that he made down in the Galapagos Islands? What were some of the conclusions that he made that ultimately led him to his theory of natural selection, or evolution by natural selection, more so? So let's take a look at this. The essential questions we're looking at today are: one, what were Charles Darwin's observations? Two, what were Charles Darwin's conclusions? And three, what is natural selection and how does it actually occur? So, if we take a look at this, the first thing we want to look at is, who is Charles Darwin? Charles Darwin was an English naturalist who traveled on the HMS Beagle down towards South America, and he made lots of his observations on the Galapagos Islands. Now, if you want to find out more information about Charles Darwin, you can look at the slides presentation that is attached to this video, and you can read more about Charles Darwin by clicking on that image. Now, first off, okay, Charles Darwin's observations. What did he find? He observed a lot of different things on the Galapagos Islands, and one of the things that he observed was that members of a population, or a member or a group of particular species, vary in their traits, or there's variation within those traits. Or everyone is different. Just like you would have different breeds of dogs, there's variation within that particular species, which is a dog, and you're going to have variation amongst those traits. A second thing that he observed was that traits can be inherited or passed from parents to offspring. Okay, and that's going to bring us back to genetics. Okay, but we get our genetics from our parents. Okay, and those genetics are passed from parent to offspring. Thirdly, okay, populations are capable of producing more offspring than the environment can support. Parents have more than one kid an environment can handle. Okay, so basically here you can overpopulate an environment or a habitat, so that way really the environment can't actually support all of that population or all the species within that population. Also, due to a lack of resources, many of the offspring do not survive, okay, because of this overpopulation, okay, and there's not enough food, shelter, etc. Not all of the offspring are going to survive within an environment, and that's going to be a part of life. Now, if we take a look at our second essential question, Charles Darwin's conclusions, he started to conclude that organisms with traits that give it the biggest advantage in the environment will survive to pass those traits to their offspring. Darwin called this natural selection. Now, again, within natural selection, okay, natural selection explains why organisms change over time, and they have the characteristics that they have, okay, or changing over time. That gradual change over time we refer to as evolution, and natural selection is a mechanism of evolution. It works like this. First, we have overproduction. Each species produces more offspring than can survive. After that, we also have interaction, where we could have things like competition, where individuals compete for limited resources. What are these resources organisms compete for? Well, they're going to compete for things like food, water, mates, space, or shelter. Also, in natural selection, another type of interaction is going to be predation. And this is going to be where individuals of one population are a resource for another population, or one population is going to get food from the other population, or by eating the other population. Also, within natural selection, there's variation. Okay, no two individuals of a species are alike. Genetic variations are caused by mutations. We learned about mutations back in the genetics unit. Mutations are going to be a slight change in that genetic code within our DNA that are going to lead to a variation or diversity within our traits. Variation can be passed from parent to the offspring as long as they are inherited, but if they're acquired, not necessarily going to be something that is passed on to the next generation. Each individual has a unique combination of inherited traits that makes that individual species different or varied from the other organisms within that species. Natural selection in a nutshell. So again, to summarize, survival and reproduction. Individuals with the best traits will survive and pass those adaptations to their offsprings, or survival of the fittest. Natural selection leads to evolution, or that gradual change over time by helping variations building up or accumulating in the species. And lastly, Darwin observed that changes we see in living things are the product of natural selection. Now, if there's anything in this video that you missed, I definitely encourage you to go back and rewatch it, or check out the slides presentation that's linked here, as well as I have another video linked within the slides presentation that's not made by me that you could take a look at in order to take notes on.